Hello friends, today is my third presentation for finance and accounts function on the subject of negotiation aspects in the joint ventures. This is my 34th presentation on the YouTube. Uh, what I plan to include in this presentation are need for going for a joint venture, negotiation aspects, which are there are 44 estimated. Out of this, there are 8 technical aspects, 13 financial and commercial aspects, 8 management and control related aspects, and 15 legal aspects, which I have summarized. And what kind of accounting entries are required to be there in the financial books for a JV, and what are the activities that can affect the business adversely vis-a-vis JV function, JV activities, and future references. Need for a JV. Companies opt for going for a JV for different considerations such as below: gaining a competitive edge by speeding introduction of the newer and innovative products, mainly when the product development cycle times in-house are very large and technology not available in the country; obtaining faster access to the export markets and becoming a global player; strategic sharing of the strategies amongst the JV partners and leverage each other's strengths; to have a quantum jump in the quality of the products and services associated with the product; to reduce the cost through newly acquired technology, share infrastructure, economies of scale, and joint procurement; risk sharing amongst JV partners in case of market uncertainties, economic conditions, and regulatory changes imposing new demands on the company; resource sharing, including financial burden and sharing market infrastructure, assets, and capabilities. Technology aspects. 8. I am sharing this from the perspective of, say, vehicle manufacturing, where there are end products, there are aggregates like engines or transmission, and parts, bill of materials, parts, etc. It is in this context that I am sharing this for a manufacturing and automobile industry, and concepts can be used for any other kind of products. Yeah, in the case of technology for design drawings and specifications, primarily there are three aspects. One is for the end products. So end products will have specific models, bill of materials for each assembly and sub-assembly, assembly operation sequence, assembling of the equipment and tools and jigs and fixtures, inspection, testing equipment and gauges. What I mean is that while negotiating the technical aspects, we need to negotiate that we need technology for all these aspects. Quality insurance plans for the end product, quality standards, inspection checklist for each of the end products, software package and solution for the layout and assembling. Number 2 aspect is technology for the manufacturing and engineering processes for the specific end product related. For example, in-house manufacturing assemblies, say engines on gearbox and transmission, etc. Bill of material for each assembly and sub-assembly, including consumables. Aggregate and parts manufacturing process sheets, including bought parts. There may be some items which are manufactured in-house. The technology for those manufacturing equipments and tools and jigs and fixtures needed for performing in-house manufacturing activities and assembly operations. Third, continuing to this is the inspection and testing equipment and gauges for the aggregates and the bill of materials and parts, quality assurance plans, quality standards, inspection checklists, aggregates and parts, software packages, solutions for manufacturing. Like we have for the end products, ditto type of technology inputs we need from the JV partner for all these in-house manufactured and engineering component. In fact, not only in-house, maybe even bought out also for sharing with the vendors. Now third one is the after sales service aspects for rendering of this after sales services, for say in this context for the end products I talked about, like vehicles. Now what are the after sales supply parts as per supply conditions, what supply conditions they will be received, whether they will be received as a CKD part or as a assembled part, like we will be receiving as a total in case of failure of product. Do we need a complete will we be getting a complete engine or its individual parts? After sales service manuals with videos and images for dismantling and reassembling of this of the aggregates, spare parts, manuals, service tools, software packages and solutions, standard hours or minutes for rendering of services, that is how much time is required for assembling or for disassembling and for rendering services, for repair of a aggregate, software packages solution for rendering of the after sales services. Now, other aspects beside these three broad technical aspects are like what kind of language this needs to be negotiated, otherwise we are likely to incur extra cost in getting it translated. Scope of the JV in terms of access to the market, access to the overseas market, access to the countries. At times, the JV partners may import restriction that you may not import, you may not export this end product from your place, from say India to other countries. Use of sale and distribution network of the JV partner, very very important aspect. Scale of scope of the JV, access to supply chain. Now they have established JVs would have definitely established suppliers, contractors, service providers, etc. Now the our entitlement to get supplies from them, covenants, conditions on the brand of the BOM parts which we will be using. Are there any restriction on that, or we can choose our own brands? Covenants on the sourcing of the BOM parts, or we have to source from a particular specific vendor while there may be available from other sources, other vendors. Continuing, scope of supply of the SKD and CKD, that means semi downtown conditions or completely downtown condition, or the BOM parts and spares by the JV to Indian partners. And this we need to negotiate the list for these and the year wise estimated plans for supplying the quantities of sets and values and duration, and any covenants or periods up to which SKD CKD must be procured from JV. That means supposing we develop capabilities to develop this in SKD conditions much earlier, are there any restrictions that beyond even that up to so many years we must essentially procure these SKD's supplies from the JV? So this is we need to negotiate. Scope of the JV, supplying of the equipment for manufacturing, quality control, jigs, fixtures, gauges, etc. by JV. That means we should have the liberty to procure these equipments, etc. from the JV, including the drawings, etc. And year-wise plans and quantities and values estimated and duration are required to be negotiated. Now coming to commercial aspects, there are 13 aspects. Now first one itself is the overall lump sum know-how fee which we need to provide vis-a-vis the scope of the design, drawings and specification. This may be separately for end products, for the manufacturing and engineering parts, and for the after service parts, depending on the scope of the scope of the JV. Pricing and supply of the in-house produced assemblies by JV. Now this is very very important that we need to negotiate initially itself, that what will be the percentage markup of the cost landed at the JV, or the methodology or the logic or the algorithm for pricing of this SKDs, CKDs, BOM parts and their spares, sourcing from JV. Otherwise we might end up in paying very high prices in case these are not negotiated in the beginning. Similarly, pricing for the equipment, jigs, fixtures, gauges, software solutions, some logic needs to be inbuilt in the negotiation aspects. Pricing and supply of the JV of the bottled parts or percentage markup above the cost incurred by the overseas JV partners for the SKDs, CKDs, BM parts, spares, equipments, and so on and so forth, including sales promotion materials besides spares. Because these need to be distributed to the large number of dealer network. So pricing for those. Free training overseas and in India, and what is the scope and the step types and the number of persons who will be trained and the duration and the mandates, and any charges beyond that. Taxes and imports duties. Obviously it is the Indian partner who will be bearing this. Some ideas of sharing these import duties cost with the JV, so that while doing the pricing they need to be taking aware. They will need to be aware of these aspects, and any taxes overseas which may be there on at the time of the export from us. Royalty, what is the percentage of the net sales, net of the localized items, which is payable, percentage of that net sales, how do we compute it, the duration, and the when it will be due, and the frequency of the payment. Now, any expatriates, any overseas JV source related skilled people who are provided to Indian company, Indian partner, function wise levels, position and duration, and reimbursements if any. Payment remittance methods for the payments, which could be LC or document through bank or any other online method, and so on and so forth, as per the restriction imposed by the RBI. And the currency, of course, this is another aspect to be negotiated. Training, what kind of training is there on free of charge, and chargeable rates and duration and location. This is very very important aspects. Otherwise, it can put a huge burden on this payouts. Man days rates beyond free training days, level wise rates, emoluments and stay charges, etc. Who will bear this and cost? And the next aspect is funding participation plans, in terms of how much capital will be contributed by the JV and by the Indian partner, the working capital and in the expenses. Management and control aspects, what need to be mentioned, there are 8 points. Equity participation in terms of percentage of the total equity and capital to be induced in the country by a potential JV. There are of course restriction on that. Organization structure of the JV post signing, number of board members, key positions to be manned by whom, like position of the MD, CEO, CFO, CEO, chief of marketing, chief of purchase, HR chief, etc. This is a very difficult point, and must be negotiated well in the beginning of the JV negotiations. Pricing formula for exports to JV from the Indian partner. What are the likely, like we talked about imports from JV, likewise what will be the percentage markup in case of future exports from India to the JV? Like markup above the cost for end products or aggregates, or BOM parts or after service or tools, jigs, fixture, which are produced in JV, and JV needs to source it from India. Exports to JV, are there any restrictions and covenants in terms of shipping of the end products and aggregates or BOM parts and the countries? Schedule of activities also needs to be negotiated in the beginning itself. Overall plan from the signing of the MOU till the first end product is rolled out and sold. The warranty terms in terms of end products which we buy from them or SKD, etc. The duration, the excluded items, the payment, whether we will be getting the warranty as a payment credit, or they will be supplied on free of cost. That means any BOM parts or CKDs, etc. in case of any defect, will they be supplied free of cost, or there will be payment made to us? And placement time against such free replacement, or purchase order, after purchase order is placed, how much time it will be taking for JV to supply these parts to us. All these points are based on my experience. IT and support system, what kind of hardware and solution software is recommended to be procured by the Indian partner, what kind of network security design aspects are there, and technical aspects, activities, financial and commercial aspects, activities, management and control aspects, whatever these aspects which I have talked about in the technical and the financial and the these aspects, what kind of technical support is required. At times, the JV's partners, they insist on specific software module to be procured from a specific IT vendor or service provider. The process for settlement of the claims in case related to the defects or short supplied, or how the debit notes will be settled in terms of for the bottled parts or the SKD, CKD, for the equipment, jigs, fixtures, after service, sales, promotion materials, etc. Process of settling of these claims. For example, is there a requirement for that all spare part must be physically sent, these must be verified by them, and only then the JV will settle the claims, or this can be through the photographs and pictures or video. Legal aspects, there are 15 aspects which have been identified. For example, there are aspects which are there related to the Companies Act or the LLP, FEMA related aspects, RBI regulations, foreign trade policy related aspects, the aspect related to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act 1977, SEZ related aspects if it is applicable, and labor laws. Once the JV is formed, there are several labor laws which are applicable, the dialogues on these. JV formation and JV operation aspect, there are different guidelines from the ministries on the which need to be complied with related to the liabilities of shareholders, approval from the board, shareholders or both, appointing directors, auditors, the types of permitted capital and debt equity, profits and dividend repatriation, limits, documentation, taxation, copyright, trademark, IP rights related, and acquisition and transfer of assets, repatriation of funds, etc. There are legal aspects. These need to be negotiated in the beginning itself. Minimum capital requirement from JV for investors, time frame for paid up capital for foreign investors, pricing of the shares, but particularly guidelines for the equity and compulsory convertible preferential shares, and that's why these need to be made known to the JV partner, the reporting requirements, and the imports and export related aspects. Now there are different kind of agreements beside the joint venture agreement which need to be signed, like the IP transfer agreement, share price agreement, employment agreement. These need to be discussed in the beginning itself, and the warranties related to the agreement. These need to be worked out in consultation with the legal team and consultants. Notice period, jurisdiction, laws of the country, which laws of the country will be applicable, exit clause, conflict resolution mechanism, what are the different kind of covenants other than what we discussed a few minutes ago, remedies for the breach, how to manage those, confidentiality clauses, dissolution clause, changes to the agreement to be signed by whom all, and the process for that, duration of the JV in terms of years from the date of MOU or agreement signing, and so many other points which may be there. These need to be discussed threadbare. Now, what are the kind of accounting entries which are there in the financial books? I am talking particularly from the ERP perspective, but these are equally good for non-ERP environments also. Now, in our organization, there may be many verticals. So JV may be signed and operational in specific business units for specific end products and models. So in order to monitor operations and financial performance of JV, it is essential that unique financial account systems are put in place. Now ERP software like SAP, they have specific provisions for such financial transactions related to the JV operations, vis-a-vis executing of the transaction on the JV vis-a-vis JV in the books, developing of the configuration tables related to the JV, developing of the master data tables, authorization objects for accessing of the JV data. Now these are summarized in this table, where on the first column I put transactions, configuration tables, master data tables, authorization objects, and important fields, etc. On the second, I have put the various description of these with respect to each of these rows. Now transactions with respect to the creating, editing, viewing, displaying, etc. for the JV, these need to be worked out and share that we'll be needing such kind of software to monitor all this. The posting of the accounting documents in the JV for journal entries, revenues, distribution, cost allocation, reports, etc. For the configuration table, we need to have a separate independent configuration tables which are related to JV, like company codes, account categories such as related to the equity, income, expenses, JV account types like usually assets, customer, vendor, GL5, and materials, and various different 20-30 type of different kind of JV documents such as accounting document, asset document, bank payments, bank receipts, bills, GL, etc., etc., and master data tables related to the JV to be developed, like profit center and company code assignment for JV, authorization objects that who all can have access for the various kind of activities related to the JVs, whether it is in India or overseas, the account assignments, joint operation for the budgets, for the actuals, and different kind of important fields which are relevant to the JV. Now, activities that can affect the business, including unethical activities. The alignment of the mutual goals, interest, and exploitation of the potential JV partners is not done comprehensively before starting negotiations as an MOU, which can cause delay in the finalizing terms and conditions. Evaluation of the technology, its absorption methodology, and scope of the JVs is not done comprehensive through visits to the manufacturing sites of the potential JV partner or resource network places like dealers or distributor or channel or vendors, and by the technical specialists so as to review alternate emerging new technologies. Financial and commercial evaluation is also inadequate due to insufficient due diligence, leading to weaker negotiations. Inadequate market intelligence about the experience of the other JVs partners regarding JV support. Now there are some leading overseas companies. They have a couple of JVs in different kind of different products and different countries, including India. So a dialogue with such experienced existing partners of JV may be worthwhile. An inadequate internet search about the JV partners, about his financial health, products, market share, profitability, management profile, etc. Prior board members, MDs inputs are not taken or not incorporated by the negotiating team, particularly with respect to the management aspect like equity and control and technology absorption. Lack of mutual trust among the JV partners and legal and statutory complexities are not discussed threadbare during the negotiation, leading to delays and disputes. Now, a book on this is under conceptualization stage and would be launched in the next few months. You can refer to a blog which is there on my website, where which I have given the reference of this. There are some other articles of interest which you might find relevant in my Facebook reference and LinkedIn reference. Thank you very much.